right, so in this episode, we're gonna be driving the back side of Lake Murray, essentially the west side, if you're looking at it from an overhead view. We're gonna be driving from Chapin, where we're getting started now, taking that back side of the lake over to Lexington. On the way, we're gonna be passing through the Newberry County part of Lake Murray and the Saluda County part of Lake Murray. But we're getting kicked off here again in the Lexington County part, and we'll end in Lexington County. I've had a lot more people intrigued about this area, and I started to show more and more homes on the lake and on Lake Murray on this side of the lake. As we'll talk about a little bit later, your money tends to go a little bit further than per se the east side of the lake in the Chapin and IRMO areas, as well as Lexington. Again, later on I will discuss current pricing around Lake Murray to give you that good idea. With that said, this video will give you a good perspective of where major shopping is relative to these areas. As I mentioned prior in videos, the west side of the lake tends to be quite a bit more rural, as you'll see as we continue on. And so that's why we got started out here, driving through Chapin downtown. And as you can see, it's still a relatively small town. But you do, of course, have major grocery stores like Publix, Food Lion, and Lowe's Food. You do have a handful of local restaurants, many highly rated like Higher Ground, Chapin Chop House, and so many more. You're not going to have as many of the big chain stores here in Chapin, but you'll have places like Ace Hardware and more. And to give you an idea for those first learning about the area, I've done a driving video before showing you where the major shopping is compared to here in Chapin. But to give you an idea, you're about 15 to 20 minutes to the Harbison area, where our local mall is. Well, you'll find Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, Sam Club, and our one and only Costco, and so much more. And again, that's kind of back near the IRMO area. And again, we will wrap up in Lexington, where shopping starts to pick up again. And as we do this, again, we'll drive through the town of Prosperity, halfway through about, which has a couple shops and a grocery store. Again, hopefully this gives you a very good perspective of where major shopping is compared to these areas around the lake if you decide to live out this direction. Because again, I know that's most people's first question when they start considering the more rural areas that we talk about. And again, for those first time learning about Lake Murray right here in South Carolina is a 50,000 acre lake. It is just west of the state capital of South Carolina in the city of Columbia. It's actually made up of 4 different counties. You're talking about Lexington County, Richland County, Saluda County, and Newberry County. Lake Murray itself has roughly 650 miles of shoreline and is just shy of 190 feet deep at the deepest point. Lake Murray is essentially the dammed up Saluda River. It's a hydroelectric dam providing power to the area. The dam itself on the Lexington side is approximately 1.5 miles long and 220 feet high. It's one of the big highlights of our area because they have a walking path that allows you to walk that 1.5 mile trip and has phenomenal views of the lake, especially at sunset. Lake Murray, though, going back, is 41 miles long and 14 miles wide at its widest point. We are going to be passing Dreher Island State Park in this drive. It's a campground right there on the water, and I'll talk about that when we get that. One of the other highlights of Lake Murray you may hear about is the Purple Martin Roost on Bob Island. One of the islands on the lake, known as Bomb Island due to the fact that they used to fly bombers over the lake for training missions back during World War II. Either way, this island has become a sanctuary due to the fact that it is one of the largest nesting sites for purple martins. Every year the purple martins come back, and it's a sight to see every night at sunset when they come land on the island. Earlier this year, with more information about Lake Murray, the Spirit of Lake Murray reopened. It's an 80-foot yacht that does both private and public charters on Lake Murray. And after we pass the state park in just a bit here, I will dive into pricing on Lake Murray. But for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Brandon. My team and I of local real estate agents have truly been helping people from all over the country relocate right here in the Midlands of South Carolina, Lexington, Columbia, and the Lake Murray area. And I put videos out like this every single week, teaching you about the area to see if it's right for you. I make videos about the state of the market. I do home tours, neighborhood tours, pros and cons, and as well as the driving tours, hopefully give you an idea of the area before you've even landed here. I know many of you tell me these are some of your favorite videos because it gives you that best perspective of the area while being so far away. I know as a transplant myself who relocated here back in 2015, I understand the struggles of trying to figure out an area that you've never been to, many times from states away, where it's not easy to just drive and check out an area. Otherwise, don't hesitate to reach out. That way you don't have to go out this alone. Again, continuing on, you can see we have kind of left more of that developed area around Chapin, and we've head to the more rural part of this drive as we continue on through the more rural parts of this. We start to see more and more development come to these areas slowly, but it's still happening. And we'll talk about some of those new developments a little bit later on. But it just at this point hasn't had the growth that per se Lexington has, IRMO has, and Chapin has in the many years that I've been personally here. But again, we are starting to see it more and more. And again, we'll dive into that in a little bit here, as well as current pricing on Lake Murray, because I know so many of you ask about that. All right, so on the left here, there's actually signs for a new lake development coming to the area. This actually used to be a restaurant bar called Frayed Knot, and many years ago it closed down. We did go before it closed, and the land went up for sale as well as the building. Now the land, again, there's been signs that say new lake development coming soon. So we officially crossed over to Newberry County. Frayed Knot, where that was, there's actually, it's not on their website there, but there's a sign for what's called Carefree Boat Club, and you do have that on the other side of the lake. Let me dive into what it is. I always felt like it was kind of a boat timeshare is the best way to put it, where you buy into the club and you can come use the boats, and so you don't have to pay for maintenance, and that's kind of the way they sell it. And like I said, my best representation of it was boat timeshare, and I've had some friends that joined it and did really enjoy it. Either way, as we come up here around this corner, we're coming up to Dreher Island State Park that I talked about. Give you an idea, it's 348 acres, provides access to 12 miles of Lake Murray shoreline. There's a day use availability with picnic shelters, boat ramps, and so much more, including a shop there. But there's also camping. Their site says they have 2 lakefront camping areas, having scenic views and easy access to the shoreline of Lake Murray. There's 97 paved sites that may be used for both RVs and tents, while 15 sites are for tent campers only. It says each site has water and electric hookups and a picnic table. Many sites accommodate RVs up to 45 feet, others up to 35 feet. All sites are convenient to hot showers and restrooms as well. Again, highlight of the area if you want to go camping. As we pull up here, we're going to be making a right heading towards Prosperity, as I mentioned before. Swing by there downtown, but left is going to take you to where Stewart's Landing is. This is one of those new developments that I was talking about. So it's a lakefront neighborhood, and again, after this I will circle back to pricing right there on Lake Murray. But again, Stewart Landing was this neighborhood built on the lake with boat ramp, boat slips, a clubhouse, tons of green space, and more. It was sold off as individual lots ranging in size and price. Some of these were bought by builders who have now turned around and listed the homes, where others were privately purchased and people built their homes on them. There's been 8 homes that have been sold in the neighborhood as far back as June of last year. Those range from right around $625,000 up to $1.25 million, a home right there on the water. But to give you an idea, the average was around $833,000. At the time of making this, you still have 7 currently active, and they are averaging, and pause right here about that, to the left is going to take you to Nacho Margarita. This is a new Mexican restaurant on the lake that we've been to that is really good. We'll talk about that in just a second though. Either way, currently active. Averaging right around $667,000 with an average of 2,415 square feet. None of those were the lakefront ones. Either way, going back, Nacho Margarita. So we have seen more restaurants popping up on Lake Murray. And prior to, you had, going back, Liberty on the Lake, as well as Catfit Johnny's right across the street from it, across the cove. And in recent times, you had Nacho Margaritas pop up, as well as San Jose's on the lake, which we'll drive by a little bit later on. I've always told people it's not that much of a touristy lake. They tried, they proposed a new marina with restaurants, hotels, convention center, and so much more, but it never really took place. Either way, it's exciting to see more and more restaurants. Obviously, you can see this is kind of a bit out here. Either way, let's talk about the cost of living, because I know so many ask. So I recently made an entire video about Lake Murray and the cost to live around and on it. I dove into the different lakefront neighborhoods and their cost, where all the public boat ramps are, and so much more. So if you want to learn more about the lake, you'll want to check out that video, because again, we're going to pass a handful of those lake neighborhoods, and I'll definitely point them out to give you perspective again where it is. But if you want to check out the pricing, head over to that site, or head over to that video, I should say, because in this episode we're not going to be talking about all the neighborhoods pricing, but let's talk about actual on the lake water living on Lake Murray. Again, the reason I did this video is because I have more and more people looking on these more rural areas. So let's talk about Newberry County, where we actually are at right now. So since the beginning of the year, homes has sold from a 900 square foot that says the existing structure is uninhabitable and will need full renovation, and no entry is allowed, and that sold for $200,000 to give you an idea. The next livable was a 1,548 square foot house that had some foundation work that needed, and that one sold for $300,000. Either way, the highest over on this side of Lake Murray went up to a 4,702 square foot on 5.85 acres with 209 feet of water frontage, selling for $1,600,000. The average though on the Newberry side of Lake Murray was right around $730,000, which brought it to $308 a square foot. Next, we'll talk about the Saluda part of Lake Murray, which after we leave Prosperity, you'll notice we will drive, we'll cross over the lake again and head into the Saluda area. Either way, since the beginning of the year, homes sold from a 1972 700 square foot manufactured, which is a mobile home. They've changed the names of it over the years. That sold as is for $275,000. Up to the highest was a 3,524 square foot home on 0.4 acres with 174 feet of water frontage. It was in a gated neighborhood and it sold for $1,400,000. The average though was right around $634,000 with an average of $339 a square foot. Now, I know we barely touched Chapin in this and we're barely going to be touched Lexington, but I want to give you a little bit of perspective since we're here talking about it. So let's get kicked off with the IRMO Chapin part, which is where we started. Since the beginning of the year, homes sold from a 2,300 square foot home that said it was not dock permittable. Again, you got to watch that lake video where I dive into whether or not you get a dock permitted. But it says you are able to beach a pontoon. That sold for $395,000. Up to maxed out at 8,860 square foot home on 1 acre with 485 feet of water frontage that sold for $3,190,000. The average though was just shy of $1,070,000 with an average of $351 per square foot. Again, you can see the differences between the two sides and why we see more and more people looking out this way on the lake because your money goes further. Again, let's roll into Lexington. That'll be the other side where we wrap up. That's, again, I know it's a little bit confusing. I talk about this all the time because you have Lexington County as well. You have Richland County, but the Lexington part of the lake is gonna be the part that we wrap up on that southeast side of the lake. Either way, since the beginning of the year, homes sold from a 784 square foot 1995 single wide mobile home for $240,000 up to a 6,324 square foot home on 1 acre with 367 feet of water frontage for $3,600,000. The average though was $995,639 with an average of $383 per square foot. And as I say this, I'm actually glad I did this because over the last year, as I broke some of these areas down in my market videos, as well as that Lake Murray video, kind of surprised me that the Chapin average was higher because historically Lexington was. So I wondered if that dynamic had shifted, but looking at the fact that the price per square foot is actually higher in Lexington, it may just be that the fact on average that the homes on the IRMO and Chapin side are just that much higher in square footage, pulling up the average price. I mean, obviously comparing the most expensive home that sold in both, the one in Chapin was 2,500 square feet larger. Again, this is just kind of something I noticed as I was putting these stats out there. And that's why I tell people all the time when you're comparing, you know, averages and medians, there's a lot of things that can weigh into this. And obviously that's one of them is square footage there. Either way, we're going to be pulling up here to Prosperity in just a minute or so here. But again, going back, like I said, not very much a touristy lake. And again, it's kind of the more rural part that you see. And you will start to see as we circle back to the other side as it picks up in the Lexington side. But we'll be in the town of Prosperity in a little bit and talk about what's there, and we'll go see the rest of this area. All right, as you can see as we pull in here, it's a small little town. You got a couple little local shops and restaurant, and you're not gonna see it in this video, but just on the other side of the downtown where we loop around the town circle, there's a Food Lion. Again, as you can see as we pull in here and go through this loop, talked about this in, one of my other videos. These old railroad towns, you know, these old railroad towns were thriving many years ago. And obviously as the railroad kind of went away from being the predominant part of transportation, many of these towns kind of just got left is the best way to put it. And you know, someone mentioned to me when I was trying to figure this out, like why do certain towns take off and others don't? And obviously one of the big reasons for it they mentioned is the proximity to the interstate. That still allowed, when you went away from that railroad, that easy commute for people to get back to the major areas like Columbia for jobs, and of course for deliveries and transportation and things like that when the railroad went away. But you know, it was always interesting to me when you have, the reason I bring it up is, right, you have downtowns like Lexington that I just feel like took off, but it's such a poorly designed downtown for the growth. When obviously you see this downtown with their town square and such, it just seems was just better designed for it because of that railroad that came in, and so that's why they did it that way. And so again, that's why I just bring it up, just because I found it very interesting as I continue to explore more areas. And this isn't just here locally. I noticed this as I traveled the country as well. Went to different spots around the country, and I just noticed this trend with it. Either way, this is going to start heading us back over towards the Saluda part of Lake Murray, and then eventually, like I said, loop around to Lexington, where we'll hit more shopping than obviously we've seen in this last little bit. And we will cross over the lake again on the way. I'm going to talk about some neighborhoods that I sold some homes in, had some people buy in, give you an idea. So we'll pop back in here when we cross back some of those, but again, just leaving Prosperity, heading back towards that top part of Lake Murray. All right, so that right turn there's actually a gated neighborhood down that way called Harborview Estates. I listed a home there years ago. And so I wanted to pull stats to kind of give you an idea of pricing in that neighborhood. And because I did not actually put that one on the Lake Murray video, simply because of what I'm about to tell you. In the last 2 years, there hasn't been much that is sold. Very small neighborhood and not much sells in there. But to give you an idea, there were 2 that were off the water that were in the low to high 500 range, kind of one of both. And then the one that was on the water, a 3,285 square foot home for $1,010,000. Either way, again, that neighborhood is gated. They do have a boat launch in there as well as boat parking. Again, not much pops up in that neighborhood very often, which is why I didn't put it on that video, because then a lot of people are like, oh, I love this neighborhood. It's like, you might be waiting a year before a home comes available. Either way, we'll talk about the next neighborhoods and some more as we continue on. So we've officially crossed into Saluda County. So on the left was Big Man's Marina. All right, so as we pull into this traffic circle here, we're gonna be looping back to Lexington, but you might've seen on the signs, heading to downtown actual Saluda would be to the right there. Continuing straight as we come up here, kind of will take you towards that Batesburg, Leesville area. And then we're gonna be, like I said, continuing basically running parallel to the lake, heading back towards the Lexington area. Again, we're gonna cross some more neighborhoods that I did highlight on that Lake Murray video to give you perspective of where they were. Some popular ones, Harbor Watch and so many more, Sunset Bay. And then again, we'll point out some more boat ramps. Again, hopefully this gives you that really good perspective of where everything is relative to where you plan on living. And again, we are in the Saluda County part of Lake Murray at this point. So you might have caught the sign there. That's a sign pointing you to Murray Shores Boat Ramp. There's gonna be a public boat ramp on Lake Murray. Again, on that Lake Murray video, I talked about all the different public boat ramps on Lake Murray. There are public boat ramps if you don't end up living in one of these lake neighborhoods. We're gonna pass some that are a little closer to Lexington later on, and I'll point those out as well. Either way, coming up here on the left, if you turn left at this intersection, that's gonna take you to a place called The Cove. When we first moved here, it was a place called Lake Murray Resort and Marina, and we actually became members. They had a restaurant right there on the water. We didn't own a boat, but it was like a nice place to go, private place, hang out on the water. And they ended up going away, and a new place opened up called The Cove. As well, I've seen signs down to there as well for that Carefree Boat Club I talked about on the other side of the lake. Again, we're starting to see it pop up more and more in the area. Again, going back to that video, we'll pass some more neighborhoods as well as, like I said, some more boat ramps, and I'll point them out when we get closer. So we've officially crossed into Lexington County. All right, so taking a left here is going to take you to a couple different things. Harbor Watch, the gated neighborhood that did get highlighted in that Lake Murray series because it does have that marina, as you can see in that video in the corner. Again, another popular neighborhood. If you want to go check that out, you can dive into the pricing in that video I talked about. But again, this one is going to be very amenity rich, and so a lot of people ask about this, and hopefully this gives you a perspective of how far back to the Lexington and shopping area from there. Otherwise, continue over there, you're gonna have Acapulco. On their site, it states it's RV camping on Lake Murray. It's an economical way to enjoy lakefront living. We cater to the RV owner that would like to park a camper for a longer period of time in a clean campground. We allow short-term camping when campsites are available. All campsites include water, sewer, and electrical service. We do not allow full-time residency though. Each lease is for occasional use only. All right, so this is like a disclaimer for anyone coming to the area. You see this sign right here on the left if you can't catch it. There's a guy that owns this piece of land, and I don't know the backstory, but he loves to put these funny signs up that create a lot of controversy. That sign said, Gentlemen's Club, the first gentlemen's club on Lake Murray come to the area. There was no gentlemen's club coming to Lake Murray, but obviously you can imagine the comments and stirred up. And he's had a bunch of random signs about what's coming soon to Lake Murray since I've been here. So if you see a random sign there that's like, what, is that really happening? It's probably not. As well, that San Jose is on the lake was right back there, right past where I mentioned that. All right, so as we come up here on the left, you're gonna have a couple different things. You can see some marinas we passed, but you might see off in the distance to the left, the kind of brownish cabin looking things. That's the Marina Cove neighborhood that I've highlighted in my Lake Murray series. This is your most budget-friendly homes. They were essentially kind of log cabins. Some of the newer ones that they've built in recent times have more drywall versus true log cabin, but again, most budget friendly you can find on Lake Murray there. And of course you had all the marinas, and there's a boat rental place. We've rented a boat there before in the past down that. And there's actually, I believe, another boat timeshare that is at the Lake Murray Marina, Liberty at the Lake, that marina, as well as over here. Don't quote me on that one, but I'm pretty sure I've seen a sign for it. All right, so if you didn't catch the sign there on the right, to the left would take you to Down Shore Road, which will eventually take you to another public boat ramp that you can see. This, I tell people, is gonna be the closest boat ramp to the more west side of Lexington. Of course, you have the dam with their boat ramp over there. The other thing is this boat ramp is free year round, where obviously during the season, the one on the dam, you're gonna have to pay to get in. And so I know when we've gone out paddleboarding, they have a little cove down there. We've come to this one off of Shore Road just because it's an easier drive. And again, you don't have to pay to get in. Of course, we have gone to, during the season, the little beachfront side to go paddleboarding there. But again, we did like this spot over here because it's on an island. And so on one side of the island, they got the traditional boat parking. And the another one, if you got little John boats you want to take out, there's a smaller launch on that side. And that's where we kind of usually go to paddle around for a little bit. So on the right is going to be Hammock Bay. These are condos right there on Lake Murray that does have boat parking as well as a boat ramp in the neighborhood. I've talked about before in other videos, condos outside of on the lake and then of course over by the college haven't been really popular in our area. So if you're looking for condos, that's why maybe you haven't seen a ton of them. We haven't seen really a ton of new ones outside of course, these ones on the lake in many years. On the left is going to be the lake neighborhood of Sunset Bay. Again, I'm not going to dive into price in this video. I want to check out that Lake Murray series. If you want to see more about that, this is what we like to call the Florida homes because as you might have seen, pastel colors. And again, they got a little beachfront there with sand. Super neat neighborhood. So on the left here is going to be Beechwood Middle School. This is going to be one of the middle schools right here, Lexington 1 school district that we're in now. All right, so we're really pulling back into that Lexington shopping I told you we're gonna get to. And we're gonna loop this around because I'm gonna show you where there's a brand new shopping center allegedly coming to the area that I know a lot of people have been asking for. But to give you an idea, so you're gonna have the Publix right here on the right-hand side of the road that you may have caught eye of. And then we're gonna head forward and there's gonna be a Lowe's grocery store. Over there is gonna be the Walgreens, McDonald's, Starbucks, right across from Lexington High School. So that's kind of like I said, if you're hitting grocery shoppings from that kind of more rural area that we recently drove through. Now, with that said, to give you an idea, we're about 10 minutes from downtown Lexington, where the Ice House Amphitheater is, O'Hara's Public House I've talked about many times, right? That Main Street district and so much more. So again, that's gonna be about 10 minutes from here. So hopefully it gives you a little really good perspective of how far these things are. On the right here, since I see it, Crafty Giraffe. If you're a beer drinker, I've never seen so many taps on a wall in my life. They give you like this encyclopedia thing. I think it's digital now, and there's so many options. So if you're a beer drinker, I took my brother out here and we checked it out, and he was pretty impressed too. It's just like a line of taps. Either way, Crafty Giraffe, check it out. As well, Lowe's Food. They if you've never been, so just because we're on the topic of it, when we first moved to the area, Lowe's Food was not here. And all of a sudden they announced Lowe's Food coming to the area. And I had friends at the time that were from, I think they were from Ohio. And they were like, oh my gosh, we're so excited, Lowe's Food coming. I was like, Lowe's, like Lowe's Home Improvement? And they're like, no, Lowe's Food. There's a Lowe's Food. And I was like, okay, you know, whatever, it's a grocery store, check it out. Really nice grocery store, you know. They got a lot of that niche stuff if you're looking for kind of healthy foods in there. But they also have, you know, the butcher, the bakery, and they also have their beer den. It's a coffee and beer den. So you can get coffee, but they also serve beer in there. So you can get beer on tap, put it in your shopping cart, and do your shopping with the beer right there in your hand, right? Pretty crazy, right? Either way, really neat shopping center. They're building another one actually now in South Lexington over by where White Knoll High School is. Either way, I'm looping back this direction for very important reason, because it has been rumored coming up here on the right is going to be a brand new shopping center. Again, on the left is Lexington High School. That's going to have Target. That's right, a Target shopping center on this side of town. I know a lot of people have been looking for a Walmart because again, the next Target and Walmart are still going to be about 15 minutes from here. And so to have like one of those big super shopping centers, if you need to run and grab something bigger than just, you know, the grocery store sell, Obviously this is satisfying that niche. Now again, this has been talked about. No official signs out there yet, so we will see, but possibly a target right here in these trees.